Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be going over how to calculate volume of three-dimensional objects. This specific video will focus on prisms and cylinders. So let's explain what those are, how to calculate its volume, and do a couple examples to go over those. So first, you got to think about a prism is just, in most cases, is just going to be like a box. But a rectangular prism is what you see here. To get its volume, you're going to find the area of its base. So in this case, if it's a rectangle, you find the area of the rectangle. You can do that by just doing length times width. And to get the volume of it, take that area of the base and multiply it by its height to figure out how many cubic units something takes up. So remember, volume is how many cubic units an object takes up. So you imagine a bunch of little cubes stacked up together. You can calculate that by multiplying length times width times height, or the more generic version of it is the base area times the height. So the area of the base times the height. In this case, since it's a rectangular prism, we can say length times width times height for most prisms that we're going to be dealing with here. But in general, it's capital B times H, and that capital B means that it's the area of the base. Area of the base. A cylinder kind of follows along the same rules as a prism. It's going to have both a circular base on the top and the bottom. In which case here, to get the cylinder, we'll have to calculate the area of the circle. The area of a circle, any circle has an area of pi times the radius squared. So any circle, the area of any circle is going to be pi times the radius squared. And the circle happens to be the base. So our base in this case is a circle. We have still a height there, so we're going to take that and multiply it by its height to figure out how many cubic units a cylinder makes up. So you're going to take your pi r squared times it by your height. So the volume of any cylinder is pi r squared, area of the circle, multiplied by height. So those are your two formulas here we're going to work with. And let's get a couple examples under our belt so we understand what's going on here. For the most part, our prisms are going to be primarily rectangular prisms, so that should make it a little bit more simple to work with. Let's take a look at this example. A cylinder has a height of 6 centimeters and a circumference of 10 centimeters. What is its volume? So you'll have to know the volume formula for a cylinder. So let's write that out. The volume of any cylinder is equal to pi r squared times the height, pi r squared h, if you don't want to put the time symbol in there. And you can draw a picture out if it helps you. So I'm not the best at drawing these, but let's see if I can give it a whirl here. We know that we have a height of 6 centimeters. So I can write 6 centimeters along this length here, and it gives you the circumference of 10 centimeters. So first of all, we have to know what is the circumference. In any circle, the circumference is the distance around the circle. So the circumference of a circle is the distance around the circle. And to get that, you're going to use the circumference formula, which is 2 pi r, 2 times pi multiplied by the radius. So how do we solve for that? In order to calculate the volume of that cylinder, we have to have the radius, and we have to have the height. The height we're given is 10. But we don't have the radius. We have to calculate that. So we're going to set up an equation involving your circumference. So we're going to use this formula first. And we're going to substitute what we have in for c, which is 10. And that's going to equal 2 pi r. Now, to solve that for the radius, you're going to have to divide by the 2 and the pi. So you can take the 10 and divide by 2 if you want to get rid of that number first. And that's going to give you 5. So 5 equals pi times the radius. And remember that pi is a number. Pi is approximately equal to 3.14. Now, I tend to use the pi button in the calculator. It's more accurate. I'll show you how to do it. First I'll do it on the handheld graphic calculators, and I'll show you on Desmos. So on this calculator, to get pi, you'll notice that pi right here is right where that exponent button is. You'll have to press second exponent to get that. If you hit enter, it'll tell you about approximately what it is, 3.14159. Let me show you on Desmos now. If you're on a Desmos, you can go into the calculator function down here and you can click this button and that'll tell you approximately what it is. If I make that a little bit bigger, you can see the calculation there, 3.14. Or you could type the letters PI. So you'll type PI, and that'll get you the pi button as well. So either way, you can calculate that on any calculator that you have. Even handheld scientific calculators will work. So now what we're going to do from there is we're going to set that up and we're going to solve for the radius. So what we want to do next is we want to get rid of that pi next to the r, because remember, this is pi times r. So we're going to undo that times by dividing. So we divide by pi and divide by pi, and your radius is going to be 5 divided by pi. Throw that into your calculator, 5 divided by pi, and that'll tell you what your radius is. It's approximately 5 divided by pi is approximately 1.5915, so I'll just say 1.59 to make it easy. And now that we have that radius, we're good to go to calculate the volume. So remember, our volume formula is pi r squared times height. We already have the height like we had before, so we'll plug that in. And then now we have our newfound radius, we'll plug that in as well. Throw that into your calculator and round to a couple decimal places. So you'll input into your calculator pi, you'll plug in that 1.59, make sure you square it, and then times it by your height, which is 6. Take a moment to calculate that. Pi times 1.59 in parentheses to the second power multiplied by 6 will give you approximately 47.65. So your volume of this cylinder is about 47.65. Let's write our units correctly. When you're calculating volume, volume is always going to be in cubic units. So our cubic units, in this case, our units are centimeters. So we'll say centimeters cubed or cubic centimeters. So we say 47.65 centimeters cubed. And that's how we write our answer. And there you have it, example 1. Make sure you write all that down. All right, now on to example 2. A cylinder and a square prism both have a height of 5 meters and the same volume. What is the radius of the cylinder if the area of the prism's base is 9 square meters? So once again, we're going to have to draw this out to kind of get a visual. So I will draw out both a cylinder and a square prism. All right, forgive my drawings there, they're a little crude. The question says they both have a height of 5 meters, so I'm going to write 5 meters along the side for that, and this height as well. It says, what is the radius of the cylinder if the area of the prism's base is 9 square meters? So let's see what I want. I want the radius. The radius of the cylinder, remember, is this length right here. That's what I'm asked. And I know that the area of the prism's base is 9 square meters. So I know this area here is 9 square meters. Remember, it's a square prism, so that's going to be a square. So the area of the square is equal to 9 square meters or 9 meters squared. So what I want to do first is I want to figure out what the volume of this prism is, so that way I can figure out what the radius is since they have the same volume. So the volume of the cylinder equals the volume of the prism. So what we're going to do first is we're going to figure out what is the volume of that prism. I can do that by doing the following. The volume of the prism is simply equal to length times width times height. The area of the base times the height. Well, I have the area of the base. Length times width is 3. Is gonna be 9 because each of those is going to be 3 by 3. So that's going to be 9 multiplied by your height. Well, what's your height? 5. So the volume of that prism is going to be 45 cubic meters. So now I can take that volume and I can go back and I can, since I know that that volume is equal to that, the volume here is 45 and the volume here is 45 and the volume here is also 45. So let's go back to our formula for volume of a cylinder. Volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times the height. We have the volume. Our volume is 45. So we'll substitute that in. Pi is pi, so that's just the number 3.14 repeat, and with various decimals going on forever. We do not know the radius, so that's my big question mark. So I'm just going to say r squared, but we do have the height, and that height, remember, is 5. So we're going to solve this for r. Once you solve for r, the question says, what is the radius of the cylinder? That's what we're solving for. So let's divide out. I'm going to get rid of this 5 first. 45 divided by 5, that's going to give you 9. Our next step is to get rid of that pi. So we're going to have to undo that pi by dividing by pi on both sides. That's going to be a little calculator work, so put that in your calculator and see what you get. 9 divided by pi is approximately 2.86. So to get 2.86 is equal to r squared, then you're going to write that down. And our final step is to take the square root of that to get r by itself. So r is going to equal the square root of 2.86. Put that in your calculator and you'll have your approximate radius. If you have one of these calculators, you can do second square root and you can scroll up, press enter so you don't have to worry about rounding, or you could do second square root and hit second answer. And you get about 1.69. If you just do the square root of 2.86, that's fine as well. It'll be a little more rounded, but it's not too far off where it's going to make a big deal for your answer. So 1.69 is close enough. We'll write that down as our answer, and that's your radius. Remember, our units were in meters, so we always want to keep the consistent units that we're working with. We'll say 1.69 meters. Radius is a length. We don't have to worry about cubic meters in this case since we went from volume to get the length. So you should have enough examples now on prisms and cylinders to hopefully work with what you have on your assignment. Thanks for watching.